The NFL schedule release is coming up in just 48 hours, Wednesday night. So we're going to talk a little preview. We're also going to talk rookie minicamp. What did they do? What can we gather from it? And the 2 new signings. What are they all about? We're going to talk about all of that and a little bit more here on a Monday night episode of the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner, he is producer Dave. And we surprisingly have a lot to talk about tonight because we had rookie minicamp going on this past weekend, kind of what that means, what we can learn coming out from it. And the one guy I was surprised that did not end up getting a contract from the Minnesota Vikings to be on the 90-man roster. Plus, schedule release is on Wednesday night. And we're already getting leaks. These are controlled leaks. The NFL is intentionally keeping themselves in the news. They leaked some this morning. They just leaked a few games this afternoon. Heck, right as Dave and I got into the room here to start doing the show, 2 more games got leaked. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how that those ramifications matter for the Minnesota Vikings and what that can mean and a lot more. But first, let's start here. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Spent most of the day at the new house and still waiting on word from our moving company. It is what it is, but I was working on setting up the studio.
Yeah, I got a sneak peek. The basement is huge. And that house is somehow like 60% of what I paid for my house, which is hilarious. But I don't think my wife would like that small of a master bathroom. But I would definitely, let's put it this way, I wouldn't be able to use that master bathroom. But let's kind of have some conversation. So rookie minicamp, the Minnesota Vikings kind of approach this a little bit differently than other teams. So you can't do like full-blown team drills. You can't do like true 11 on 11s. You can do like shells and stuff, but you're not going full bore. So one of the things that's interesting about how the Minnesota Vikings approach it is they use it as a teaching moment. They use it to just see what you can do, how you move, and then use that to kind of project forward. They're not doing a bunch of that kind of stuff. Kevin O'Connell talked about, he's like, I've seen people get hurt when they go full bore like that. It's rookie minicamp. You have 20 non-roster guys, and if one of those guys gets hurt, there are waiver exceptions, and then I believe that can impact you with the salary cap because now all of a sudden you have to place that guy in injured reserve. There are a lot of things that can go wrong because when you don't have a contract, you'll go all out because you want to get that contract, and that can really matter for you. That can be impactful, and O'Connell wants to try and avoid that. He wants to see what these guys have, but doesn't want to put them in danger. So that part is very interesting. I do think the interesting thing kind of about how his approach is the results that they've gotten. I don't know if, what's the best way to phrase this? They haven't signed anybody from rookie minicamp yet that's ended up making the roster. But one of the interesting things about players that you invite in for rookie minicamp is if they end up being added to the 90-man roster, theoretically, they already have a leg up over players who have not, who are already on the 90-man roster because they went out and showed out in those practices. And now they've essentially catapulted themselves up the ranks, and they've made that great first impression, which is important. Yeah, there's college film. Yeah, there's interviews. But once you get on an NFL field, it's almost like you reset. You have to prove yourself again. You have to continue to prove yourself. So the Vikings ended up making 2 additions, which are very interesting. They signed Matt Harmon, the edge rusher from Kent State, not reception perceptions Matt Harmon. That's going to be a heavy bit for a lot of people. And the other one is Elijah Williams, defensive tackle from Morgan State, an HBCU. And I think what's really interesting about a couple of these guys is what they bring to the table. And I'm going to pull it up here, which is why I'm looking at my screen. There are 2 different types of players. And let's start with Matt Harmon. Oh my goodness, I got hiccups. And you can hear him now. All right.
Not good. Hey, Dalton, it's big, but I'm cutting off about half of it for the studio. So when you guys eventually see it, you will see half the length.
Yeah. It's very cool. So what's really interesting with Matt Harmon is he's a 7th-year college player. But he's one of those 7-year college players that just kept getting hurt. He had 5 of his 7 seasons where he played 7 or less games. That's a lot. And why did he get hurt? I have not dove into some of the why behind that, if there was like recurring injuries or if he just kept getting hurt. But that's probably a big reason why. I see you, Drew. I'm not responding. I'm not. No. Fat Hawkinson, I do find that one funny. So Harmon is 6'6", 245 pounds. Not very big for an edge rusher, but the length, arm length 33 3/4 inches, 10-inch hands, 6'6". Like, you can do a lot of different things. So when you look at some of the metrics, he doesn't look like a guy who's going to be like more of like a Dallas Turner where he can kind of do a little bit of both. But when you look at his relative athletic score data, his explosions were okay. 32-inch vertical, which isn't great, 58th percentile. And then 9-foot, 10-inch broad jump, which is 76th percentile. 4.75, 40-yard dash, 79th percentile. But the 3-cone, under 7 seconds, 6.95 seconds with a 95th.7th percentile score there. So it feels like the idea, and I haven't been able to watch him. Shout out Kevin Fielder, who does like the small school draft guide. He kind of viewed him as like a 7th round player. Not exactly a great talent, but I do think because he showed out at rookie minicamp and got this invite, they see something with the size, the hands, the length. Maybe they think that he can be more of like a tweener, like how Jonathan Grenard is. But Grenard had elite like splits. He's so quick off the ball, and that was his calling card coming out of Florida. And Harmon has a 1.65 second 10-yard split, which is 76th percentile. So it's fine. It's not elite, but it's good. You know, you're kind of happy with that. He's 84th.8th percentile athlete per this metric. But this metric also relies heavily, in my opinion, it feels like it relies too heavily without actually being able to see the algorithmic data behind it, the size. And based on the public facing stuff that we have, I don't think its size is just well enough, but that's just an opinion, because he's a 95th percentile height for the position and 18th percentile weight. So he's in a little bit of an oddity, but it's interesting because you feel like you can do a lot with this type of player. Now, he doesn't have a lot of production. He only has I think 4 sacks and 11 tackles for loss over the course of 7 years. And you're playing at Kent State. Kent State is arguably the worst football program in Division I football. It's bad. They have no money. It's really rough out there. Kent State basically has to play a gauntlet of 3 non-conference teams that play them a total of $5 million just to keep their operating costs in a good spot, because it's rough. And with Kent State, you're playing some good competition early, but you're so overmatched. So it can be hard to really see some of those things. But the 3-cone is what's interesting to me. 95th percentile 3-cone. That means that dude is bending the arc in some way, shape, or form. And if you can bend the arc and you got flexibility in those ankles, that can take you to a different level. That can help elevate you in ways that you necessarily wouldn't have been able to elevate before. And I think that element is probably what the Minnesota Vikings were thinking. It's an idea. And maybe you can get something out of that idea. Is he going to be anything? Probably not. That's just the reality of a late ad on a 90-man roster. Every so often you hit a Jalen Redmond. Or if you're lucky, you're the Vikings and you hit Adam Thielen. And I think we've been too spoiled on some of those kind of guys, like Danielle Hunter, 3rd round All-Pro, and Adam Thielen, rookie minicamp invite, and then all of a sudden becomes a Pro Bowler at wide receiver. That's far from the norm. And I think Vikings fans have seen too many of those where it hits and then we chase it and we continue chasing it to try and find the next one. Well, I'm not convinced either of those guys are going to be that way. But I will say the second ad, Dave, gives me a little bit more hope that it could be, because the second guy is Elijah Williams, and he went to Morgan State. I'm trying to find his relative athletic score profile here because it's very
outside or inside linebacker.
No, he's a D lineman, Dave.
Or D lineman.
Straight up D lineman. So Elijah Williams, 82.7th percentile relative athletic score. And I kind of mentioned I don't love relative athletic score, but it gives you a general synopsis about what the important metrics are. So he was incredibly productive. Now, this is FCS, this is HBCUs, and HBCUs don't have the same type of standard that they did with players like Walter Payton. You used to see guys from HBCUs go high all the time, but they're at the FCS level now, and you get some really solid players every so often, like Shaq Leonard, the former Darius Leonard from the Indianapolis Colts. Javon Hargrave was a 3rd-round pick out of South Carolina State. So you do get players that are good from those levels. Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter started at Jackson State, HBCU. So you do get good players, but the level of competition is just not as high as FBS competition. So you have to take some of the production with a grain of salt. Well, the production, Dave, is real good. 33 sacks, 52 tackles for loss, pressure rate 10.38% as a defensive tackle. I will say it's very interesting that you would want to see that pressure percentage a little higher, but it's without having actually dove into the tape, it's hard to truly know how much of that is his fault, what he was being asked to do, because as a defensive lineman, sometimes you're just not asked to just straight up rush the passer. Sometimes you're not giving those opportunities to just be a 3 technique where you can just shoot the gap and attack. But he's got 33 sacks, 52 tackles for loss. Hello, that sounds pretty good to me. And he's got multiple sack seasons at 11. He can do a lot of different things. I think the idea of him is really interesting, but as anybody coming from the FCS level, so this isn't just like an HBCU thing, this is also him coming, if you would come from North Dakota State or Montana or Mercer or New Hampshire, whenever you come from one of those schools up to the NFL, you're essentially jumping 3 levels, because there's the Power 5 level, or now Power 4, the G5 level, and then the FCS level. So you're jumping those FBS levels in order to get to the NFL. There's oftentimes a learning curve, but there's a profile to work with. At the combine, he was 6'2", 288 pounds, 30 reps on the bench press, which was 85th percentile. Good enough explosive drills, 31-inch vertical, 81st percentile, 9-foot broad jump, 72nd percentile. The 40 was only 5.2, but the most important part of that metric was the 10-yard split, 1.71 seconds, 85th percentile. But he can bend, and this is where things get really interesting. 97th percentile short shuttle, 89th percentile 3-cone. So the quickness drills, everything quick is really good with Williams. You'd like to see a 40-yard dash a little closer to 5 seconds for his size, but you can tolerate that. He's also got 33 and 5/8 inch arms, 9-inch hands, which you'd like to be bigger, but you can deal with it. There's a profile here and hyper productivity. How much that will translate, couldn't tell you. I wouldn't even want to guess. But that idea, and this is what you're trying to find with rookie minicamp. You're trying to find players that are an idea that, hey, I can develop this guy. I can take him to becoming a starter in the National Football League. That is what you're trying to find. You're trying to find players that you can coach up and become something. And the first impression being that, hey, you were good enough for rookie minicamp to earn a contract. Yeah, that rocks. That's awesome. And I think Williams is the type of player that you want to give an opportunity to. Now, will he be anything? Probably not. But I'm glad that he's getting an opportunity with the Vikings because the idea of him is a good one. When you look at these guys, Dave, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking when you see these guys?
I don't know. I haven't seen them. They sound all right, but we'll see. When you get an invite and you get signed to the roster, you're usually bottom guys, just like most of everybody at the rookie minicamp, trying to reach, that minimal level. Now, whether it takes off from there, that's solely up to them because they've got to do it, whether it be like Adam Thielen did or Johnny Randall or whoever in our past has done that. They've taken that attitude, that disrespect that they weren't drafted and such, and had to be invited and turn that into something. Will they? Likelihood is slim, but it'd be cool if they did. You can never have enough defensive tackles that are good, especially that can do pressure. And the Williams kid sounds that way.
Yeah, and it's not just the pressure, it's the production. You better produce at a level like that if you're going to be a player who's going to translate from the FCS level to the National Football League. You have to be able to produce there. But and
if they make the squad, the 53, they're, they've got the correct attitude and motivation.
Yes.
And I like that.
No, I 100% agree. I'm intrigued, but one thing I'm most intrigued by is the short shuttle stuff. Short shuttle, 3-cone, a 10-yard split, quick penetrator off the ball.
And the 10-yard split shows quickness out of the stance, and that's what you want for linemen on both sides of the ball.
You wish the explosion scores were a little better because then it would help you feel even more confident that the 10-yard split, the shuttle, and the 3-cone are as good as they are. But I mean, you're talking about a 72nd percentile broad and an 81st percentile vertical jump. Those are good. Those are objectively good. So we'll see once he gets onto the field how that ends up looking, how he looks from a long-term perspective. I'm really intrigued. I'm very intrigued by it. And we'll end up seeing how that's going to manifest itself. But yeah, I can't wait to kind of see what that ends up looking like. I'm intrigued. But it's also tough because, he produced at the FCS level. That doesn't mean anything about producing at the NFL level. It's okay, you produced heavily at the FCS level. I can feel a little comfortable taking a bet on you. And that's what this is. This is a gamble. Everything with the NFL draft and UDFA process is a gamble. But this is a guy that has really interesting traits that, hey, maybe you can get something out of him. This is another shot at trying to find Levi Drake Rodriguez. And Levi Drake Rodriguez may never be anything. But you were bringing this guy in thinking, okay, we're going to keep taking shots at guys who are uber productive that maybe can take you to another level. So we'll see. I'm intrigued. I really wanted the cornerback from Nebraska, Tommy Hill. I thought he was the guy that was overlooked in the draft, and I think a lot of it had to do with the plantar fascia injury that he suffered last year. maybe that hasn't healed right. Maybe there were some other medicals. But that dude should have been drafted, and he only got a rookie minicamp invite. It kind of tells me that maybe the medicals were just awful. And I'm speculating. I don't know for sure. But I think that's an interesting element here. I do. So we'll end up seeing, but I want to give a shout out to Nate who put this in my purview. And I mentioned it earlier, the idea of Javon Hargrave. Hargrave had very similar numbers to Elijah Williams coming out. And yeah, his height, he's only 6'1", 3/8, but he's 309. And this was coming out. A 10-yard split that's slightly faster, a much faster 40, but the short shuttle and 3-cone drills were very poor in comparison. So you kind of have an idea of, hey, maybe this guy could be the next Hargrave. Because remember, Hargrave also came from an HBCU at South Carolina State. So the idea of, hey, we think this guy can play like Hargrave, if that's the case, then you can have Hargrave kind of mentor him and help him and figure some of those things out. It's very interesting to me that this could end up being a thing. I'm very, very intrigued to see how this looks long term. I'm intrigued to see what it's going to look like this preseason and training camp. But like I said, zero guarantees whatsoever. But I kind of like the idea of this bet. I like it.
Oh, I got you. If you're wagering, the house generally has the slight advantage. So,
yeah, it's like 25-1 this guy even makes the team,
right?
And then from there, it's like 50-1 that he becomes a real contributor. But you have to find ways to get advantages and take these calculated risks, because look, a 90-man roster spot is absolutely nothing. It doesn't mean anything. But you want to give those out to players that you believe can maybe be something and have a real reason to bring each and every one of them in. So
it extends the dream for 3 months of a college player that, you know, he might not want to go sell insurance or, you know, load groceries or do whatever. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And he can say, hey, I was a Minnesota Viking.
Yeah.
For the rest of his life.
Absolutely. And you know what else you can do with the Minnesota Vikings, Dave? Once football season comes back around, you can have some fun with Minnesota Vikings on Underdog Fantasy. And tonight's Wolves game is going to be a fun one. I played a lineup last weekend, and you know what? I barely missed. Ant was a couple rebounds short. Julius Randle needed one more 3, but it gave a little something extra to have fun with. I hit Naz Reid over 2.5 threes. I hit Jimmy Butler over 1.5 threes. But you can have fun doing the same thing. All you got to do is sign up with Underdog Fantasy. Pick 2 to 8 different players, higher or lower on their stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your bet. The best part is the promo code Forno. If you've never signed up before, use it, and you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash with a first deposit match. That rules. It's free money to have fun with. And that's all this is. It's a layer of fun for games that you may not necessarily be 100% invested in, or even add more investment to games you are. All you have to do is be in one of those states on the map, sign up with the promo code Forno, and have a lot of fun. But remember, if you feel like you're having too much fun, do us a favor, call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's okay. All right, Dave. You told me pre-show that you have a schedule prediction.
I do.
And knowing you have it on a graphic.
No, I don't. There wasn't enough time to put it on a graphic.
Okay, so let's do it this way. Why don't you kind of go through your schedule? We'll stop like every 4 or 5 games, and we'll kind of talk it through and talk about it. And I haven't done like a true schedule prediction. I did some predictions on some games I think will happen, but let's go through it and let's kind of see what it is and how things might be able to look once we get that come Wednesday night. Which, remember, everybody, we'll be live 7:00 when that schedule releases.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have some fun.
Now, there's going to be a lot of theming going on here. I have heard the rumor that the Vikings will open up against a divisional opponent on week 1. I did not go that route.
Where's the rumor coming from?
I've just seen it across Twitter, local fan base stuff. It's floated. If it's validated, I'm going to send it to you. Don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, I don't like mentioning those rumors unless it comes from a validated source to begin with. That's why I asked.
It's just, people want to start off that, so we'll find out. But I got week 1, the Atlanta Falcons at the U.S. Bank Stadium. Starting with a home opener against a non-divisional opponent. Atlanta's a winnable game to kick off the season, and the fans suggest this for week 1, per my assistant, that will be the case. And you will look at Kirk Cousins as a backup on the sidelines. And it'll be a great way to fire up the crowd for week 1.
Oh, yeah. So the Vikings have played the Falcons multiple times in week 1. What year was it? Was it like 2018? They played him in week 1. I think it was within the Kirk Cousins era they played him in week 1. And then 1999, they played him in week 1.
Good source.
Oh, The Athletic is real journalism. You may not like the opinions of some of the Athletic writers, but that's real journalism.
And that may have been where I saw that. And it may have been that they're thinking that along those lines. Now, week 2, we go on the road for Monday Night Football. Our first primetime game. And it will be the youngster, J.J. McCarthy, who had to sit and watch Sam Darnold all last season. Will get to take on Sam in his house in what should be a beautiful weather day in Seattle.
There we go. The Vikings have historically gotten Seattle late in the season when it comes to playing at Seattle. So
don't worry, we'll screw each other. I'll screw the Vikings here at the end.
I do think it's an interesting matchup, and I do think it's better to have that game early in the season than it is late, because you never know with Darnold. But man, that's a matchup. Oh, it was 07. Thank you, Drew. I knew it happened multiple times in my lifetime.
All right, week 3. First of the NFC North teams. 2-year quarterbacks going against each other. We host the Chicago Bears. And hopefully Mr. Williams has got his nails done during the week. And this will be the first of the division games. Week 4 has been almost 100% confirmed, is at Dublin. The Vikings take over the town they built and defeat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Calling for the win already. Then week 5, we stay in Britain. We fly across the strait and play London. If it's brown, flush it down. So we have back-to-back international games, which will be neutral site games. They're both considered away games for us on the schedule, but it turns out we have actually 8 home games, 7 away games, and 2 neutral site games, and we should hopefully win both of them. Now, this is where the first of the screwing comes in. You want to call it that. NFL gives the Vikings the bye on week 6 because of the back-to-back overseas games.
So that's an interesting one. And I'm really curious to see where that bye week comes in. And I might write about it, actually, because 2022, when Kevin O'Connell came in, they learned from the Los Angeles Rams experience where they had like sleep experts and stuff. They calculated out the smartest time to fly out because they didn't want to fly out early in the week. They want to have a relatively normal week and then travel. And they flew out like Friday and they flew back out Sunday night. And because of that, they ended up like it was really successful. And they took that and used it against the Saints, where they flew in on Friday. And they did not have a bye that week. I think their bye was like week 11 or week 9 or something in 22. Yeah, 22. But last year, they had a week 5 game against the New York Jets, and they had a bye in week 6. And I'm curious if they were like, okay, we're fine with week 6, but week 5 is just 1 week too early. I'm very curious how that's going to shape out if the Vikings try to push for a later bye because they are being forced to be overseas for a week or what. It's very interesting because how does that manifest?
I
I
tell
can't wait
you
to find out.
from flying back, it's always harder, or it seems, going from the east to the west for me to adjust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
All right,
I mean,
week 7.
if I go east to west, that means I go to sleep at like midnight instead of 2. I can't do that. That's too much.
Drew, that's a negative. This is my interpretation of a schedule. Week 7, after that week bye, we're going against a tough team. But it's another young, up-and-coming super stud at quarterback. We host the Washington Commies at US Bank Stadium. That's going to be a toughie, considering they made the NFC Championship last year. And week 8, we get a break. We travel to New York to face the Giants.
Second year in a row going to face the Giants in New York. But I mean, it happens. It is what it is.
Week 9, the Baltimore Ravens at US Bank Stadium. This will balance out the schedule so far, as I see it, for tough and young and setting up for the second half of the schedule. Then comes week 10. We go off to Ford Field to play the Lions on the first of the first division road game.
So just to be clear, this is not Thanksgiving, correct?
Does week 10 fall on Thanksgiving?
I don't think it does. I'm making sure in my head. I think Thanksgiving will be like 12 or 13.
Okay. Now, then I've got week 11. We play the Eagles at home, the Super Bowl champs. Ooh, Lions, Eagles. Oh, it's going to be a rough stretch.
Mm-hmm.
But we get a break in week 12. We travel to Chicago. And hopefully by this time, Caleb's in complete meltdown mode and crying to his mother. And we will sweep the Bears at that point. Now, week 13 is the Thanksgiving. And I have us away at
Cowboys?
the site where Randy Moss went off. We play the Cowboys in the afternoon slot on Thanksgiving. So it'll be a good Thanksgiving for everybody.
Let's go.
Then week 14, we take on the Cincinnati Bengals, which should be an interesting game. It'll be a test for the defense for sure.
So here's my question for you. Would Vikings Bengals be on Thursday night? Because what the NFL likes to do is that Thursday afterward is they like to put two teams.
Quite possible.
They love to put two teams who ended up playing whatchamacallit. But so what's also really interesting about this is the Lions don't play at home against the Bengals. So it would have to be the night game would have to be a Bengals Thursday night game. which would be very interesting.
Yes, it would.
But you know what? I'll take like Bengals Steelers or something on Thanksgiving night. Just ugly ass rivalry. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Then comes to week 15. We host the professional quarterback from Green Bay. And hopefully, Mr. Love is on his proving that he's up and down and only Kirk Cousins' version of a quarterback. We'll find out. And what I mean by that is he has good games and he has bad games and he ends up around 500, maybe a little better. All right. So we played Green Bay. We played Detroit. We played Chicago twice. Week 16, we traveled to the left coast to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. Going to be a good run game. Hopefully, we will find out. Interesting. And then, of course, we have the final 2 weeks. We only have 2 games left. There's only 2 teams we haven't played for a second time. Week 17, we travel up or across to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. And it's been a while since we've had a cold game in Lambeau. We're overdue for it.
Well, just 2 years.
We'll see. Well, it used to be tradition every year, but it's not gone to that. And then,
normalize playing at Lambeau in week 2.
Yes. And then week 18, we finish at US Bank Stadium with the NFC North Championship already in hand versus the Detroit Lions, who I'm hoping regresses this year. We shall see. And that is Dave's schedule for 2025. We'll find out Wednesday how close I was to being right.
I think the Packers one in week 17 is interesting. And I had that in my predictions too. I only did 3 predictions because there's so many different variables. So I wanted to try and be right. My 3 predictions were the Steelers and Browns overseas. I've been hearing that for a while. And week 6 would be a Monday night game. So it wouldn't be a bye, but they'd have an extra day. And having an extra day matters. It helps. That extra day can make a big difference, especially with that international travel. And then the third one was the Packers and Vikings in week 17 because they've done it the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 years were in Green Bay, 21 and 22. Last 2 years for 23 and 24 were in Minnesota. But it's been a constant that they played in that slot. The one thing that's going to be interesting to see how it manifests over the course of the next few weeks, or next few days, I mean, is the Packers are now playing week 16 on Saturday, meaning week 17, they're likely to play Christmas Day. The only thing we know so far about Christmas Day is the night game. The night game is, what do you call it? Is Broncos Chiefs, because it was an Amazon Prime announcement. The way they're announcing these things is so dang weird, but they're doing it in a...
Well, Fox did the whole week 16, their doubleheader package. They've announced that.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that Amazon Prime would announce theirs. Sunday Night Football is going to announce one before we go, with the official. And
there's a lot of them tomorrow.
CBS
a lot on
as
Wednesday.
Well. Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting one. I don't think that they're going to end up playing the Packers in week 17 anymore. So we'll see. I'm not 100% sure. But I do think that this schedule, how it lays out, means everything. And it also means nothing. Because remember, at this point last year when the schedule got released, we're like, the Vikings are screwed. Oh my gosh, are the Vikings screwed? Why do we think they were screwed? The early season gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
Because the early season gauntlet was Giants, 49ers, Texans, Packers, Jets. And at that point, we're like, oh my gosh, they may only win one game of that. They won all 5. And that's what I mean why it means everything and means nothing. Because, yeah, we can I hate predicting the schedule. I really do. We're going to do it because it's the off season and there's very little else to talk about. But it often means nothing because, like, if you're predicting a week 10 game, what happens if one of the starting quarterbacks is injured and doesn't play? What happens if Justin Jefferson pulls his hamstring again and misses 7 weeks? Like, I'm not trying to put anything into the universe that it should happen or anything, but those factors matter. And why those predictions really are just off-season fodder because we're bored. Like, I'm very intrigued to see how it lays out.
I put some logic behind this.
Oh, no. I'm not. You're projecting when the games are going to be. I'm talking about predicting if they win or lose. That to me has no value.
Do the Paul Allen. I don't see a single loss on the schedule. Mm-hmm.
Nope. I don't. You know what? I'm intrigued to see how that all stacks up.
Now, on my schedule, I only had us for 2 primetime games: the Monday nighter against the Sea Chickens, and then I should say holiday game against the Cowboys. It's an afternoon, but it's everybody watching.
That's not that would not be considered a primetime game as far as how the NFL structures it, because you can only do 6 per year on the initial schedule.
We don't have any. I didn't list any as a Thursday night game. There's probably going to be one if they're still doing that rule that they have to be. Every team has to have a Thursday night game. I think they stopped that last year.
I think 1 or 2 teams did not have a Thursday night game because of how they've kind of segmented some of these things with, hey, the weekend after Thanksgiving, 2 teams are automatically playing Thursday night. And sometimes it's like the noon versus 3:15, which isn't either one of those had a prime time, but sometimes it's the prime time slot. I think last year it was might have been Packers Lions that was in that spot. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was Packers Lions on Thursday night, which I'll take Packers Lions on a Thursday night. That sounds pretty great. But yeah, I'm intrigued.
For the earthquake, the tornado, the flood, whichever.
I think the Vikings will end up getting 4 or 5 primetime games. Reason being, there's a lot of discussion about this team. You have a brand new quarterback. They have one of the deepest rosters in the NFL, and they won 14 games last year. The Vikings had 2 primetime games last year coming off of a 7-win season where Kirk Cousins got hurt and nobody believed in Sam Darnold. There's a different vibe with JJ McCarthy. Now, national media, we've talked about how much I dislike where the national media is at with this Minnesota Vikings team. But I think there's going to be enough intrigue for the primetime slot to really put them over the top. We'll find out. Only time is going to tell, and we'll know Wednesday night, which, reminder, we're going to be live Wednesday night talking about it. I'm going to be talking and typing away because I'm going to have to fix my pre-written articles so we can get all those ready to go. But we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have conversations, and I'm really excited for it.
Also Wednesday, I'm hosting the NFC North show. Who will be king? And we're going to be talking about the schedule too, but from a division, from a conference, point of view.
Just watch, Dave. Yeah, your movers are going to call and they're going to be there on Wednesday, and it's just going to screw everything for you.
Oh man, that would screw things up. But I'll take the movers. I'll take the movers at this point.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot coming up. There's a lot to be excited about. And I highly recommend, if you want to learn a little bit more about Ty Felton, I know we talked about him a couple weeks ago. I did a film deep dive, dropped that this morning. My comp for him is he is the Tin Man before Dorothy oils him up in The Wizard of Oz. Like, he is just so not fluid. He's a linear athlete, which means great straight line. The second you ask him to curve, it's a little rough. But I do think
grind.
Yeah. I think you can improve some of that fluidity. You can't improve straight line speed. You can't improve a lot of that stuff. So I'm intrigued. There's work to do, a lot of work. But I like the idea of him. Now let's see if they can fix that idea and get him into a great spot. But we're going to have everything for you from a schedule release on Wednesday night. Remember, it's going to be at 7. We're going to be going live at 7 or 7:05 Wednesday night. We will not be going live at 6:05. This is why we keep saying it does help us out if you guys end up hitting that subscribe button, so and then ring the bell like we have right here. As I'm pointing at my monitor, and it looks like I'm pointing like way out into the stratosphere because of how my office is set up. That's why we ask you to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because if you guys like us, which we greatly appreciate, all 142 of you listening right now on the YouTube channel, but it tells you when we go live, because sometimes we just go live because we just feel like it, or Dave has something going on with his schedule, or I have something going on with mine, and we have to modify the times. And sometimes we don't have the bandwidth, and we probably should fix that on a consistent level to communicate that effectively. So when Dave schedules it, you'll get a half-hour warning, unlike tonight where things were a little bit more complicated with timing purposes. And then you'll get, hey, we're live right now. And that's going to help. It's going to make a difference for you. And we're excited to talk to you on Wednesday. There may not be a show next Monday because I will be traveling. So Dave and I will communicate that with you as soon as we know. And we may have to do some show maneuvering around as well over the next couple of weeks because Dave is still moving into that house. But we will communicate that with you as we know. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell. Please do those things. We are very grateful for all of you here today. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. Keep track of all of our stuff throughout the week, including the schedule release. Scolders and Spice likely coming tomorrow. 2 All Bloggers on Sunday. And Dave's Who Will Be King, as I try to impersonate him, on Wednesday afternoon before this show. Thank you guys so much. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!